Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this exclusive IBT Thought Leadership session with Mr. C.S. Murli, Chairman, Entrepreneurship Cell, Society for Innovation and Development at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. SID has an incubation arm, STEM, whose core purpose is to leverage the Institute's intellectual property to incubate deep science startup companies and promote entrepreneurship. Our discussion today centers on how STEM is helping such startups. Also, we would be asking Mr. Murli for his views on how to accelerate the commercialization of innovation in India, which will help Indian companies be more competitive in the fast changing global technology landscape. So, good evening, sir. Pleasure having you here today.
Good evening.
And to start with, I would like to understand from you what is the core vision behind the STEM incubation cell and what has it actually achieved so far?
Okay. Uh, uh, to be able to talk about cell, let me talk a little bit about Indian Institute of Science first, okay? Because STEM is promoted by Indian Institute of Science. Now, Indian Institute of Science is a 115-year-old organization, okay, of higher learning, and it is primarily a research-driven institution. In fact, 80% of students are either pursuing PhD or MS by research, and the rest are doing undergrad and grad degrees. The second unique thing about IISc is that its faculty are across all disciplines, both in pure sciences such as biology, chemistry, physics, and so on, as well as engineering disciplines. And there are, I think, about close to 500 faculty members. So because IISc is a research-led institution, its focus has always been to do research in these disciplines, and therefore faculty used to focus on publications in top journals, conferences, and so on. Okay. Output, one way of the research, and obviously not all research output is of practical use. Some of them which are typically get, like let's say some patents that are filed by IISc, get licensed by large companies to make useful products out of them. So that is one way that scientific output was being translated into something useful. Okay. But as I said, it is only a small percentage of patents that actually are of use and interest to companies. Okay. Several years ago, probably about 20 years ago, okay, of what we call Strand Life Sciences. By 4 IISc faculty, they decided to move out of academics and start a company. Today, Strand Life Sciences is one of the leaders in its field of personalized medicine. A few years later, some of the other faculty members of IISc decided to do startup companies. Okay. And there were a few, about 4 or 5, which started somewhere in 2005, 2008 timeframe. Okay. And so I actually on board about 8 years ago. Okay. And so one of the things that IISc recognized is that while licensing patents is one way of translating it to use something useful, startups provide another very useful mechanism to translate the scientific output into useful products and solutions. Okay. So there was a focus on what should IISc do in terms of startups. So that was really the birth of the entrepreneurship cell, which is now been renamed as STEM cell. And because we are IISc, we focus only on looking at product ideas by startups, which are based on science and technology. See, clearly there are all kinds of startups that exist. Many of them have been successful. Not all startups need to be based on new scientific ideas. Okay. There are many innovative business models, for example, okay, that have been successful. But IISc, because we want to leverage IISc's intellectual property. Now, by intellectual property, we're not only talking about patents, we're also talking about knowledge of faculty. So in other words, they may have not necessarily filed for a patent, but their knowledge could be useful to some startup which is working on an emerging science and technology based idea. So that is our focus. And the other key thing is that it is open to all entrepreneurs. Okay? So it doesn't have to be a alumni or a student or a faculty who has a science-based idea can talk to us, we'll evaluate it, and then if we think it is the right thing to do, then we would take him through a process and then support him. And then to sort of quickly conclude what we do at an overview level, once we take this process of evaluating it, both from a science point of view, technical point of view, as well as a commercial point of view, we then incubate them, which means we give them space, we give them mentoring, we give them a small amount of seed capital. We connect them to partners that are required to make the company successful, right from investors to potential customers and so on. So today we have about little over 20 companies on campus, and totally in the last about 8 years or 10 years, we have incubated about 40 such startups. Okay, so this is primarily what we do. Okay, and because these are science and technology based ideas, one way you could describe them is they're all working on very innovative products and solutions.
Right. So, what is the universe which would come to you in this regard of potential startups who would like such support, and how do you finalize the your final, because obviously 20 is quite a small number as I see. So
well, it is, but as I said, we started this effort in real earnest only about 5 to 6 years ago. Before that, there were a few sprinkling of companies, but now, in fact, to give you an idea, our target now is to incubate 10 new companies every year. Okay. Well, 10 may seem like a small number, but given that these are truly science and technology based companies, they need at least 3 to 5 years to get a product out into market. See, unfortunately, a lot of the media coverage that we get to see in the public media is about software companies, mobile apps, or at the other extreme, you have the Flipkarts and Olas and so on. Okay. Now, obviously, building a new software company takes less time. Okay. In fact, a software company can, within perhaps 12 to 18 months, bring a product out to market. In fact, it can fail or succeed in 12 to 18 months. Whereas if you're building a company with which has a hardware underneath it, in addition to software, it takes time to make that hardware. Okay. Let me give you an example. Okay. We have a few companies which make medical devices. Okay. For instance, there is one company, okay, that makes a unique, that has made a product which is a unique way of assisting in detecting and treating breast cancer. Okay. Now, this is a device which is based on a technology called magnetic nanoparticles. Okay. So instead of a dye or a radioisotope, which is the current method that is used, injects a fluid which contains magnetic nanoparticles. And then there is a handheld device which is held over the body to detect where is the nearest lymph node from where a biopsy can be done. Now, clearly this will take a few years, because also being very innovative products using new technologies, even the ability to produce a few prototypes that can be tested, sometimes, unfortunately, they have to go outside of India to procure components and materials, okay, which is not only expensive, but consumes time. So therefore, building a startup which is based on a hardware, okay, has a very long gestation period, need lots of money, and therefore needs a lot of patience.
okay, so can you also talk to us about some specific case studies in this regard which have been successful, and what what process was followed from the innovation stage to the commercialization stage?
Okay. Yeah, actually, that's a very important aspect, especially because we are located in an Institute of Science, which is a research-led institution. It's very important that for a startup to be successful, it has to be commercially successful. So in other words, getting a lot of recognition and pat on the back and nobody willing to buy it is of no use. That means there is something wrong. Either the product was not required, or it's too expensive, or whatever the reason may be. So it's very important to evaluate an innovative idea, both from the technology point of view as well as the market point of view. So what we do is, evaluating from a technical perspective is relatively easy because we have access to a lot of IISc faculty as well as others. So if it passes that test saying, yes, this is good technology and it can be developed further, then what we do is we set up a committee or a team, review team, where we invite industry experts from that domain. Okay. who therefore bring in their market knowledge and of course practical experience. So it's only if the idea passes that test also that we decide to incubate them. So in other words, we want to make sure that the idea is still at a research state and not yet proven. It must at least be proven in the lab before we can say yes to it. So that's a very important step. Okay. So to give you an idea, there was one company that came to us, again wanting to build a medical device. Sounded very interesting, but we realized that it was not yet proven. So we introduced them to a faculty. They almost worked with them for 1 year before they could put together a business plan. Of course, this is one extreme, but typically it takes us about 2 to 3 months to completely evaluate the idea and say yes to incubation.
Okay. So when you say innovator entrepreneur, perhaps if we call it as a category, so any specific personality traits or motivations which you feel identify a good person who would probably be successful in this kind of an
yeah. Yes, again, I want to distinguish between truly deep science, deep tech startups versus others. Okay. As you would expect, one of the key requirements that the entrepreneurial team needs to have is knowledge of the domain in which they want to operate, be it biology or chemistry or software or AI or whatever. Okay, so you get the entrepreneurs who are who have been incubated by us. A large number of them are actually PhDs.
Right.
And many of them, some of them are pursuing, sort of carrying on their PhD research work into a useful product. Whereas in other cases, it's not so. They have actually worked elsewhere, come back, decided that they will do a startup. So in other words, in our case, because of the focus we have, you will find that most entrepreneurs are scientists and engineers. Okay. And depending on their prior experience and personality, etc., not all of them may necessarily have a business. Is also essential for success. So one of the key things that we do is I come with a business background. Even though I studied computer science, I come with a business background. And similarly, my colleagues also have all worked in industry. So we ensure that therefore they never lose sight of the market focus. Okay, because ultimately that is where success can be demonstrated. Okay. So what are the main traits? I think as probably almost everyone knows, as they say, a startup is a marathon and not a sprint. So they need to have patience and commitment and hard work to really stay the course. That is one. The second, while the idea may be good at the beginning, as they make progress, it is possible that others compete with this or come up which compete with this company. Okay. So sometimes it is necessary to make a course correction even after you have made some progress. So in other words, there has flexibility and commitment to pursue your idea. Okay, so I mean, these are traits which are common to any startup, but in our case, they bring in a lot of technology knowledge, and they need to augment it with developing business knowledge.
Right, right. Okay, so moving on from STEM initiatives, I would also like to ask you your view on the general innovation landscape in India. How does it fare with respect to its peers? And this constant feedback which we get that there may be a lot of innovators, but we are not really being able to convert that into truly globally competitive companies, which it may not necessarily be large companies, maybe even startups. So we are not being able to achieve that commensurate with probably the potential. So how would you like to?
Okay, there are probably several reasons why so far we have not seen companies originating from India which have been sort of global giants, so to speak. I think there are several reasons for it. Okay, but let me take specifically from a startup's perspective. Okay, in fact, I used to be a venture capitalist 20 years ago. Okay, and so at that time the startup ecosystem was barely emerging. There were just about a handful of venture capitalists, and and this was focused on primarily software because that was the more dominating domain at that time. Okay, so most of the startups were actually software startups or related to software. Yeah. BPOs, for example, many of them emerged at that time. Okay. Uh, so obviously it takes time. Not see for a startup to be successful, it's not just the entrepreneur. Okay, entrepreneur is obviously at the center of the startup ecosystem. I mean, you need angel investors, you need VCs, you need government policies, you need several other things to be successful. Okay, and certainly the business climate in India, which is again progressively getting better in terms of ease of doing business, has been one factor. Okay. In other words, if we had the same business environment today or 20 years ago, maybe by this time we would have seen global giants emerge out of India. Okay. And therefore, I'm very optimistic that in the next 10 years, we will see such companies emerging. The second is that it's only in the last 20 years or so when a large number of Indian population moved to a very high disposable income, that India has emerged as a big market. Because for a company to be successful, it is preferable for the market to be close to where you are. In other words, if you want to make something here and sell elsewhere, it's possible but very difficult. Okay. In fact, this is one of the reasons that you would see that most of the very successful startups that we hear about all were from the United States. Because US was not only a hotbed of innovation, but it was also a huge market. In fact, outside of US, I would say perhaps Israel is the only country which has seen many startups come out. Whereas even if you look at European countries, okay, I mean, they probably had the market. It was certainly not comparable to what it was in the US. So in the last 20 years, we have seen all of these elements of the ecosystem grow. There are more angel investors, there are more VCs, there are certainly a lot more entrepreneurs. The government policies have been becoming better and better to support startups. So I think it's a question of timing. Okay, so I don't think we need to feel bad that India has not done well. I think this is the right time for India. I think the timing is right. And so I'm certainly hopeful that we will see very, very good companies emerging in the near future.
Right. And so, what about the academia industry interface? Because that's traditionally also known to be not as good as it should be. So, any suggestions on how we can improve that and how we can improve the collaboration so that industry can
Yeah,
benefit?
I think there are two aspects to this. Okay. One is the relevance of science and technology to industry. I'm not talking just of startups, but I'm talking of industry. Okay, I mean, as we all know, because of we did not have an open market system, until liberalization started. Okay, almost all products of relevant, of anything important, had to be imported. Okay, I mean that's how I think there was a sort of a sort of imported means good quality, whereas if it is domestically made, it's poor quality. Unfortunately, that probably was true for some time. Okay, and the reason for that was then I think the business environment in India, okay, which was, as is referred to by a lot of media as a license and permit Raj, okay, did not encourage industry to invest in. I mean, so long as they got the right licenses, so long as the right partnerships, they were able to do well. Okay.
Right.
Whereas slowly, what we're beginning to see is that no matter how successful a company is, it needs to remain in the forefront by constant. That means it does require new input from science and technology to keep its product differentiated. I don't know the numbers myself, but I believe if we compare India with companies in like South Korea, China, okay, which probably 25, 30 years ago were somewhat similar in terms of how much did the country invest in R&D. Okay. And while our increase in that R&D spend has gone up only a little bit, theirs have probably gone up 5 to 10 times. Okay. So this is one reason for companies, because they had no incentive to really invest in R&D. Okay, and that is what will promote academic industry interaction. In other words, if industry truly believes and knows that it needs academic input on an ongoing basis, then there'll be a stronger collaboration. But I wouldn't only blame the industry because they were operating in an environment which existed at that time, but even academicians, okay, were very happy pursuing their academic pursuits. Okay. Which was again fair. I mean, if a person is going to be measured on his research output and publications, that's what he's going to focus on. Whereas if you look at it in the US, okay, for instance, in the US, a professor, even in a top university, whether it is Stanford or Berkeley, is expected to actually bring in funding from the industry. Whereas in India, most researchers get their grants only from the government. Okay, so I think there is an environment of what is considered necessary. It incentivizes people to do the right things. Okay, so as I said, I don't know the numbers, but I believe that the R&D spending is again other ratio to look at is of the total R&D spend in the country. What part comes from the government and what part comes from the private industry? Okay. Now, clearly, there are certain areas of research which will always be funded by the government. Like, for example, until recently, space. I mean, space meant only ISRO. It's only in the last several months when the space policy has come up that a larger number of private players has come into the space market. Whereas if you look at US, you have Elon Musk and you have a few others. Of course, they have a lot of money and they're also very forward-looking. Okay, so I think it is a question of the prevailing environment, both within the country as well as global. Okay, which would incentivize both academicians and industry to collaborate more strongly. I think we are beginning to see an improvement in that area, but for historical reasons that I mentioned, I think in terms of absolute numbers, we are probably way behind many other countries.
Right. Okay, so that will be all actually from our end. I think what we take away from this very insightful interaction is that there is a lot of hope. There is reason to be hopeful, but I guess industry needs to understand the importance of R&D much more, and greater interface would really help us move forward in this direction. Right. Thank you so much, sir, for your time, and we look forward to chatting soon. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.